All right. So in last class, I had told there is a way to connect to a database. You have to do this dot space Aura env, and it will ask you for the SID of the database, right? So for that, I had told you that you can just grep for pmon process ps minus ef grep minus I pmon, and it will give you that database which is running. Now, in a scenario where the server was rebooted and no database is up, in that situation, how will you find the name of the database which you want to start? So in that case, there is a file which will have the details of which all databases are running. So the file name is, let me cat that file, cat etc slash. Okay, so the file name is under location slash etc, and that file name is aura.inst.loc. So when I cat this file, when I aura capital I aura.inst.loc, when I cat this, hold on, what was that? etc slash aura tab, sorry, not etc at aura.inst, it is etc slash aura tab. So this file has this entries of the database. You see this last two lines, these are basically on the server have two databases which can be started, right? One database name is ORCL, other database name is ORCL1. So these are the database names, and this is the basically the Oracle home of the database. So my ORCL database is basically a 19c version, and the binaries are installed in this location. And my ORCL1 which we installed for the class is a 12c version, which is this one. This is the Oracle home. So you can come to this file cat etc slash aura tab. This file is going to remain same in all your Linux servers and Solaris servers. So you can cat this file anytime, and you can get that information of all the databases which are running. So once you have that information, you just do dot slash aura env. It will ask you for the database name. Just give the database name, and then you connect to the database. So here I'm in a scenario where my server was restarted. I'm starting the database. So that is how you figure out what all databases are installed in the in that particular server. So cat etc slash aura tab will have that information. Just the last two lines. So in this file, right, in any file on Linux, if you see this hash in front of this one, that means it is commented out. The system will not read these lines. We are basically telling it, don't read this line. This is just information for us that this file is called by Oracle Utilities and other information. So if you want to read through it, you read through it, what is this file for, etc. But a major use for us is it gives us the database name, the Oracle database home location. Okay, and if you change this n means no. If you change this n equal to y, if the server restarts, your database will automatically come back up. It basically brings the database back to same state as it was before the server restart. So if I just set this to y instead of n, next time when my uh, server goes down or my VMware is shut down and my database was up and running while the shutdown happened, when I start that VMware, automatically my database will come up. So I don't need to really do that startup also. This is beneficial when you have multiple databases and you are very confident that no issues will occur on the server level. But in scenarios where say there was some server crash, your server is not so stable, in those scenarios there are chances that you might end up corrupting your control file or your data files, because the shutdown will not happen correctly, and the startup will happen immediately once the server starts, and you will not have much control to see what exactly is happening and where it is going wrong. So it's not recommended to put here why, but if you're really confident nothing will happen to your server, then you can set this to Y and your database will come back online when the server restarts. So this is how you start your database, or when you log in into a server, you figure out which databases are running. Just wanted to share that information. I was just trying to start my database and I figured out that there was a loophole where which I did not explain you. Thought of sharing that. Okay. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So now let us start with control file management, right? So control file, basically it's one of the important file of the database. Why is it an important file of the database? Because this is a file where all the entries of the uh, database exist in. This is kind of a source of truth for database to start. If the values of if this particular file is not accessible or corrupted, your database will not start. Right. So this control file is very important file. Do not edit it. Do not remove it. Do not delete it for any reason. If there is a requirement to delete that one, then better to take approvals on emails stating that we have to delete this one, or approved request which clearly says the control file has to be deleted. Okay, because this very dangerous kind of path. If you delete it, you can get it back, but again you are in a mess until that control file is got back, and you never know whether you have a backup to get it back or not. Right. So what is a control file? A control file is a small binary file that records the physical structure of the database. When I say physical structure of the database, basically what all information it includes is, it includes the database name, names and locations of the data files, where exactly the data files are located, where exactly the redo log files are located. For example, if I try to query on my server over here, I'll I'll query using SQL Plus, right? So select name from $v data file. So these are all the locations of my data file. And this $v data file, if you check it, the definition of this view on the Oracle documents, it clearly says that this information comes from the control file. V data file displays the data file information from the control file. So if you just query this one, this information, whatever it is posting, whatever, sorry, whatever information it is giving here, that is basically coming from your control file itself. Right. So this way v data file will give us information of data file, and to check what all information we have for log file, redo log file, we say v log file. Sorry, v log. No, the column name is different. V log file. Select member log file. Okay, so this also gives us from the control file. So all this information is kind of stored in the control file. So why do we need this information as control file? Because when the database is starting, first thing it checks is the SP file. From SP file it will find out the location of the sorry. Okay, so v data file and v log file information, right? That comes from the control file. So where why exactly we need this information in the control file is, first thing what happens when the database starts is it goes and look for the existence of the P file or the SP file. From the P file and SP file, it will look for the location of the control file. So when it comes to the control file, it has to validate many things before it can allow the application to change anything in the database. So that is where all that information has to be stored somewhere. So they put all that information in a file and they name that file as the control file. Okay, so control file has database name and locations of the associated data files and redo log files, the timestamp of database creation, when the database was basically created, the timestamp, the current log sequence number. We'll come to the log sequence number when we learn about archive logs, redo logs, what exactly it is, and the checkpoint number. Checkpoint information is basically the SCN number, system change number. What exactly is the current system change number is also registered in the control file. And this control file must be available for writing purpose whenever the database is open. If the control file is not available for writing purpose, then the database will freeze. It will not be able to proceed further because the control file, at least the checkpoint information, right, the SCN number, this number keeps on changing every time, right? It's like a clock for the database. So every time this number changes, that has to be updated in the control file. So if this update does not happen, then the process which is responsible for that update, that will freeze, causing the whole database to freeze and not respond to the changes which are happening from the application. So always control file should be writable. um, and if you do not have the control file, your database will not mount. Say you said to start, you said your database to start, so it started the instance and then it assigned this memory parts and then it mounts the database, correct? When the database mounts, it will basically check for the control file. So at this point, if the control file is not accessible, for some reason somebody deleted the control file, then it will not mount the database. Now when it does not mount the database, it will not open the database also, right? So that is where the importance of control file comes. So when you create the database, this control file gets created automatically. At least one copy of the control file creates automatically. But generally, everybody recommends, when whoever uses Oracle database, they recommend doing a multiplexing of the control file. Multiplexing of control file means just making multiple copies of the control file. We will see today how to make multiple copies of the control file and how to update the parameter file so that all the control files are updated simultaneously. So how the multiplexing of control file happens is, let me open Excel sheet. So if this is your control file 1, which was created when you created your database. Now when you multiplex, you are just making a copy of this one and you are putting it into a different location. Different location in the sense different file system. Say this was file system 1, which was like say /u01, and you would try to create this one into file system 2, which was let's say /u02. Okay, the location. So you created a copy of the control file, then you went and updated the p file, because p file should have that information, right? Like how many control files are there and where is the location of the control file. In p file you have to put the location of the control file. Say I put /u01 /u01 ctrl1 and then /u0 /u02 ctrl2. Okay, so I put two locations. So whenever you start the database, it is going to go to the p file and it is going to read both the locations. Now when it reads both the location, if one control file is not accessible, it will read and it is able to access the second control file, still the database will start. So to start, it needs only one control file. But while updating, if any changes needs to be updated, it will update both the control files. Okay. If one control file is not accessible, it will put an error in the alert log for you that this control file is not accessible and this control file is not updated. But it will keep on updating at least one control file. So when updates happen, it tries to update all the control files at once. But when it's tried to read the control file, it will just read one control file, whichever is accessible. So this making multiple copies of control file is called as multiplexing. And why we need multiplexing? Basically, what if there was some issue with this file system? These are nothing but like drives in Windows, right? You have C drive, D drive. Say some drive got corrupted. These are nothing but hard disk, right? On the back end, these are two different hard disks. So hard disk can fail anytime. So what if this hard disk tried failed for some reason? Then what will you do? You lose the control file for no reason? No, right? So it's better to make multiple copies of it and keep it in two different locations, just in case. It's like a kind of a it's called as being prepared for failures, right? So if one fails, then we can still run a show with the other one, and by the time this one gets fixed, we can run the database with the second one, and once this is fixed, we can uh, bring that control file up to speed. Automatically it will become up to speed. So that is the idea behind multiplexing of the control file.
So how we will fix that? I mean, if one control file is like corrupt or something.
If one control file gets corrupted, then you just delete that control file and you copy a fresh control file from the just make a fresh copy of the control file. Say for
Okay.
example, control file 1 got corrupted. If this got corrupted and you got to know that control file 1 is corrupted, so what you just do is you delete this one. You first stop the database before deleting control file. You stop the database, start the database in no mount mode. In no mount mode, only p file or sp file is accessible. It is not yet mounted. So then you delete this guy. You make a copy of this guy just using a cp command, right? You can make a copy of this guy with a different name, and then you start mount the database. Then these two will be same. Your control file starts changing only when the database is mounted. So when your database is in no mount state, you can update the control file, you can copy the control file, you can do many things with the control file. But do not open the control file, like do a vi or do a cat on control file, because there is no information which will be helpful for you by just reading that file. There is a lot of important information, but there is a different way of pulling out that information. For a junior dba, you don't need that one. As you get more and more skills, then you will understand it better, right? How to get the information from the control file. So probably I can show you once we complete all the topics of database, right? Then I can show you each and everything in the control file. That will be relatable for you then. You had any other question?
No.
Okay. Okay. So along with all this information in the control file, we have few more uh, conditions which impact the size of the control file. Now control file is just a file, right? So if I go here on my system, how can I find the location of my control file? Show parameter control. This will basically read my information from the parameter file. When I say show parameter, it is basically reading the information from the uh, p file or sp file, right? Or parameter file. So show parameter control, you just give one word, it will match all the possible parameters in there. So here it will give location of the control file. See here, this is one location and this is second location. So I have done multiplex, automatically it did multiplexing when it created the database. Probably I gave two locations over there. So but we'll add one more location and we'll see how to do the multiplexing. So this is my location. So when I go there, again this is outside of SQL Plus. To go to a location, always you have to be outside of the SQL Plus. Say by mistake you did this one, you want to go to some location and you just cd, it will show an error, unknown command, because SQL Plus does not know this cd command. SQL Plus only knows show, select, update, insert, all those commands. For SQL Plus, cd is unknown command. So you come exit and cd change directory to Ora data, then it is in ORCL1. Okay, I just typed it wrong. ORCL. So this is my control file, right? I have two control files in the same location, which is again, uh, it will save you just in case corruption occurs in one of the control file. But if some issue happens at this file system level, then I'm at risk. I need to look for my backups of the control file. So this size of the control file also varies, right? So here you see the control file update time is also same, 853, 853. Okay, and the size of the control file is also same. This is in bytes. So if I want to do exact size, this is 18 MB. So this size of the control file should be limited, because when you start a database, it is basically going and reading the control file. If you keep on dumping that information in the control file all the time, the size of the control file keeps on increasing. Now, if the size of the control file is more, if the control file is so huge, then while starting the database, it is going to read that control file, keep on validating, and it will take time for database to start. You will just run that startup command and you will just be sitting there for the database to come up. You cannot do anything until the database comes up. All you can do is go and check the alert log, wait for the database to come up. Because if you do something in between while the database is coming up, you have a risk of corrupting the control file. So once you hit the startup command, you just have to wait for it to do its work and let you know that the database is started. Do not do anything in between. Okay, so keeping this control file size in limits is also one of the tasks a DBA has to handle. But this control file size limitation does not really come at the initial stages of your database. It comes when a database has been running for years together and there's so much of information dumped into the control file because that database is doing so much activity, so many SCN numbers generated, so many redo log information generated, so many archive logs generated, all that information is dumped in there. So the size of the control file increases more. So in that case, there are a few parameters comes into picture which basically limit the size of the control file. So this parameter, control file record keep time, so this parameter basically limits like how many days of information it can store in the control file, right? Here by default the value is 7. You can go maximum 10. You can keep maximum 10 days of information in the control file. Okay, if you want to keep more than that, more than 10 days of information in control file, then there is another way. You have to create another database called as catalog database and put that information in there. But control file can keep maximum 10 days information. If you put more than 10 days over here, then you have chances of your database starting slow, your other performance issues in database and everything. So always when somebody complains that database is taking too much time to start, this is one thing which you want to check. Control file size. What is the control file size? If you make it a huge file, it is going to take some time. It is not the problem of the database. It's just you are making it do so much of work while it's starting. So how can we limit the size? One is the parameter. Second is these other parameters. Okay, in the parameter file you have this also parameters. Maximum data files, how many data files can you create for this control file, and how many log files can you create. Let me see if I am able to pull that information. No, so these parameters, right, max data file and these parameters are mentioned when you create the control file. We'll see the syntax of creating the control file. So basically these parameters are different than the parameters in the parameter file. So these parameters basically limit how many data files can you create for a database. Right now, how many data files do I have? I listed the data files here, right? So I have 11 data files in my databases. So there are databases I have seen who have 1,000 data files also. When you create a database by default, control file will limit to 200 data files. That is the first limit it puts. Now if you cross the 200, you have to go and update the control file again. You have to tell control file, okay, you have to recreate the control file and put that max data files to 400 or 500 or 1000, how much ever you think you are going to hit the limit. Similar way, it will limit number of redo log files you can generate, number of redo log members, and all this maximum, how many maximum instances. Like in a RAG database, you have more than 2 instances, right? So number of instances you can have for a database. All those limitations occur on the control file. We will see this, what is exactly values for our data, our control file. We will get the script of our control file and you will see that. Okay. So when is control file updated? Whenever you add, drop, or rename a data file. There might be a requirement where you want to move the data files from /home oracle app Aura data oracle to some other location. Okay, why? Because probably the storage team identified there is some issue on this file system well in advance, and they say that this file system is kind of very not stable. So can you migrate to a different file system? Yes, we can migrate. What you have to do, you have to update the location of the data files in the control file. We'll see those steps in the when we do the data file management class. Right now, the updates happen in the control file. When you add or drop a table space, then also the the updates happen in the control file. When you add or drop the redo log files or groups, then also the information goes into the control file. So when our control file created, when installing database, it is created. How do you know the location of the control file? You do show parameter control or show parameter control underscore files. It will give you the location. Now multiplexing of a control file, or you want to rename a control file, it's the same steps. So these are high level steps, what you have to do to multiplex the control file. So I'll try to do one multiplexing in front of you so that you know how it's done. So for this one, always shut down the database, because control file is constantly updated while the database is up and running. You cannot do any maintenance on the control file when the database is up and running or database is in mount mode. So shut down immediate. I already know my control file locations, so I'm not running the show parameter control file again. This is my control file locations. I'll copy this one and I'll put it in a notepad. Okay, so these two locations I have my control file, right? Put it into different lines. Okay, so I'll try to create the control file in a different location also. So my database is shut down now. Okay, so what I'll do is start up no mount. When I say no mount, it is only going to use the SP file. Why I am doing no mount? Because I have to update the SP file with the location of the new control file. Now I start up no mount, I come out of SQL Plus. Now I know the location of my control files. So these are the two locations. Now let me see if there is another location which I can use for creating a control file. So /home is where I am using the location, right? So for example, where I will put it, I don't have another location. Okay, let's assume looks like I have. Okay. Okay. I'll remove the existing one. I'll create a control file in this location. So how do I create a control file in this location? Is nothing but I just copy this one of the control file. So I do copy this control file to which location you want to copy, this location. And I say control 03.ctl. You can give any name over here. Why we put .ctl? Just to make sure that it is not mistaken to a data file or any log file and deleted. So we just put .ctl so people can think that there is some other use of that file. You don't get confused. Sometimes what we do is we do like rm star.log. So in that case, if we put control01.log, we are unknowingly deleting the control file also. So log files always give log control file.ctl, that way it's differentiated. So copy this. I am just running that command, copy this control file to this look. Why did it come 3? .ctl. Okay, enter. So here control03.ctl is created. Okay, now I created a copy of the control file. Now I have to tell the p file or sp file that I have created a copy of the control file. For this one, what I do is I have to go to SQL Plus and say alter system set control underscore files equal to. So we already have 3. We cannot just go and append a new value. We have to update that parameter in this way. So this is 03, right, equal to. So just to make it look like different values, we put the values inside single quotes. So it will consider as 3 different values. Okay. So I am telling update the control underscore files parameter to this one, this value, and scope is equal to sp file. Since we are using sp file now, scope is equal to sp file. Wait, close quotation did not come. Scope is equal to sp file. So it says system altered. Now you can do show parameter control and validate that if all the 3 are showing up. Okay, only 2 is showing up because we gave scope is equal to sp file. Since we gave scope is equal to sp file, we have to restart the database again, because with sp file it takes a snapshot of the sp file and it retains in memory. So it will not know whatever the changes happen to the sp file. So all you do is shut down again. And again start up no mount. Do not mount it until you are confirmed that the control file looks correct. Show parameter control. So now it is showing that third value of the control file. So basically now I did a multiplexing of the control file. So simple steps, if you know what you are doing, it is very simple. And now since I confirm that all 3 files are locations are same, I do alter database mount. I'm mounting the database. Now it will check all the 3 control files. If it has any issues, it's going to complain. So it did not complain, so it is fine. Note all the 3 control files are basically same. That is what it means since it's mounted. And then I open the database, alter database, open. Since we started in no mount mode, that is why we are doing that mounting and opening of the database separate. Or else at this point, once you confirm, what you can do is shut down the database and just say startup, and it will mount and open the database. This is kind of a controlled way of going step by step. so that we can validate if it is having any issues with mounting the database, is it having issues with opening the database. So that is how we do the multiplexing of the control files. This is one of the tasks which you might do in your lifetime as a DBA, depending on the circumstances. If they're migrating the file system or something, or you joined the company and you found out that there is no multiplexing of the control file done, then you can obviously go and recommend your tell your manager or your team lead that this is not there, so I think we need to do this one. And they will also like it, because it's kind of a being ready for any failures which happen in the database, and you can get this task done, right? So that is the multiplexing of control file. Any questions on this one?
No.
Okay.